On its own, the Brillante was nothing special, just another useful cog in the machine of maritime trade. Yet, for a decade, this unremarkable vessel has been fought over, picked apart in court, and investigated by police, naval forces, private detectives, and experts who make their living boarding ships to look for nearly invisible clues. And it still hasn't given up all its secrets. Mention its name in one of the world's maritime hubs, and as often as not you'll get a certain kind of reaction. An arched eyebrow, perhaps, or a glance over a shoulder to see who might be listening. More than once during our research, we were warned of risks to our safety if we continued to investigate, and many of the sources we consulted asked not to be identified, fearing for their own well-being. Their anxiety was understandable. For years, the Brillante has been leaving a churn of ruined lives in its wake. At least one person involved has been murdered. Others have been threatened, kidnapped, or forced to flee their homes in terror. This book is about the hidden system that powers international commerce, and more particularly, about what can happen on its chaotic fringes. The shipping industry has the unique attribute of being utterly integrated with the world economy while existing apart from it, benefiting from its infrastructure while ignoring many of its rules. It's sometimes said that the seas are lawless, and that's true. Far from shore, on a decrepit trawler or a juddering oar carrier, there are certainly no police, and often no consequences. But the most audacious crimes can occur where the maritime world intersects with the more orderly terrestrial one, enabled by the complexities of 21st century finance, and, perhaps most of all, the collective indifference of a global populace that wants what it wants it now, and doesn't want to know the human cost. Chapter 1. A Lucky Land. In the middle of a spring night in 2011, Cynthia Mockett woke to the sound of gunshots. The rattle of automatic rifle fire was something she'd learned to tolerate over the years, but this sounded close, just outside her bedroom. Cynthia was 64 years old, a small, forceful woman with silvery hair and intense eyes. Her husband, David, was still asleep as she slid out of bed and crept over to the window. She could see the outlines of the old city of Aden laid out before her, its neat white buildings clinging to the rocky slopes of an extinct volcano, illuminated by the lights of the harbour beyond. The villa that she and David had rented for several years in Yemen was situated a few blocks back from the ocean in Muala, a district built by the British for colonial officials and soldiers half a century before. As she knelt at the window, Cynthia breathed in the acrid smell of burning tyres. Below her, crowds of young men were running through the darkness, yelling and shooting out streetlights, the muzzles of their rifles flashing with each report. It wasn't clear if they were pursuing or being pursued. Suddenly she heard David's voice bellowing at her from across the room. "What the bloody hell are you doing, Synth? Get away from there!" She climbed back in bed and lay awake until the sky began to lighten, listening to the gunfire and, farther away, the claps of artillery echoing off the hillsides. A little before 8 o'clock, Cynthia opened the villa's cast-iron gates, and David eased his Lexus sport utility vehicle into the pitted street, giving her a wave as he set out for his office near the Aden port. She looked around as he drove off. Children were playing amid the broken glass, and vendors were hawking fruit, like nothing had happened the night before. At first, Cynthia felt foolish, as if she'd imagined it all, but she couldn't escape a feeling of unease. David had lived and worked in Yemen for more than a decade, a period in which Cynthia had shuttled regularly between the Arabian Peninsula and their home in England. Never an easy place, Aden had been noticeably disintegrating for months. They'd begun to talk about David's plans for retirement and spending more time with their grandchildren. Maybe now...